You are listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 984. I'm Josh Flanagan. I'm with Conor Kilpatrick, my co-host.
I'm back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
we knew it was going to happen, but we just hoped it would be a little longer. Welcome
Yeah,
to
you're
iFanboy.
really happy for me to be gone for like 2 weeks, and then you realize I was only gone for one. You're like, oh.
Well, I just put a week in between that wasn't there.
That's fine.
I just thought you are often you said something about that like, oh, we're all going to be on vacation. I was like, you are. This is not Europe. We do not all go.
I take August off.
iFanboy 2025. I believe you summer in the Caucasus.
I do.
iFanboy 2025, 28th year doing this show, 25th year of doing iFanboy every week for 20. Yeah. One of us has picked the book they like the best from their stack of comics. We call that the pick of the week. We will talk about that book. My phone will make sounds. I don't know if you heard it, but I just gave up the ghost.
Oh, no. I don't even know where my phone is.
Other books from... I'm just going to text you the whole time. We're going to talk about that book. Other books from the week. The Patron Pick, listener mail. It's going to be fun. Here's your spoiler warning. There will be spoilers. Exercise your caution. Conor, you had the pick of the week. And if you text me, you will hear the sound that I use for you. And I'm not entirely sure I want that.
I don't. My phone is where I can't reach it, and so hopefully it's on silent. If it's not, hopefully we don't have a problem. No one calls me.
I can set this. We have settings that I can make this work. I hadn't done it.
So this was not at all planned, but in honor of America's 249th birthday, the pick of the week is Captain America number 772 or number 1. That's how they do it.
There it is.
That's how they do it these days. Written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Valerio Schiti, I think we were told. I don't know. That guy needs to write us back from Italy when he's done driving around.
Yeah, well, there was the thing was that somebody told us we're saying all the Italian things wrong, gave us a very nice list of how to do it, and then I immediately forgot all of the things. Other than to just know I'm probably getting it wrong.
What he needs to do is he needs to put the espresso down and write an email in which he lists every single. It's going to take a while.
Well, the problem
every single Italian creator and how to pronounce their name.
Well, the problem is that you can type for a while, but eventually you're going to have to switch cigarettes because it's going to burn your lips, and that's where he runs out of time.
Also, really hard to type while on the Vespa with the cigarette. So,
and your hand on the ass of someone who doesn't want it there.
So, wow. So 2 weeks ago, I had
these are stereotypes, and the bigger you go with a stereotype, I think the less offensive it is because it's.
I don't know. I think we could have stayed in the realm of food and the vehicle without getting into sexual assault. But let's talk about
what?
So 2 weeks ago, I had 33 books. Last week, when I wasn't on the show, I still had 30 books. I didn't know what the hell was going on. This week, I had 15, and that would be a fine number. But the quality of this week was everyone took the week off. So
I had 10, and I was stretching. You still need your Dropbox. The stuff that actually we're gonna get to it. I didn't need to read all these. This is the weirdest first week, fifth week I've ever seen. I've never seen the first week, fifth week.
It's very strange. So, but the thing is that it doesn't. This was the last book I read, and I was like, oh god, if this book isn't good, I'm in big trouble. There was another book I could have made a case for, which we're going to talk about, but this turned out to be very good, so I was very happy. It was a very easy pick of the week. And what's great about with you and I not paying attention to the news anymore, reading solicitations anymore, we still get the emails, and I delete them immediately before I look at them, is that I didn't know this was going to be basically a retelling of not his origin, but of his return to modern life. And I don't know if it's going to be the entire arc of the story or not. I don't know. But for this issue, at least, it is basically Steve has just come back, and he's adjusting to life in the modern age, and we get a nice, awesome, old school Iron Man suit, which doesn't necessarily make sense, but like we just can't have to go with it. And what's interesting, and as I was thinking about this, we talked about it before, but like when Captain America was first brought back in the 60s at Marvel, he would have. Everyone he was friends with would have been in their 40s, right? Like he goes into the ice in the 1940s, let's just say 45, when he's 24 years old. He was brought back, was it 63, isn't it?
That seems too early, but let's find out.
Anyway, if let's just say he's 25 years old when he goes in the ice in 45.
They're 50 tops.
If he comes back in 65, that's just 20 years. So everyone he knows is 45 years old. So it's, not as harrowing as coming back in the year 20, whatever year this is supposed to be, 2015 or whatever. Everything is different and everyone's dead, or almost everyone's dead. So anyway, that's just what I was thinking about while reading the book. There's an interesting bit here where, he's in a coffee shop. There's a guy on a motorcycle with a gun, and he goes to help, and he doesn't know what the UN is because, the UN was created after the war, so he doesn't even know what that is, even though he's from New York.
1964.
64. So
released on January 1964. So
it was like 20 years after he went in the water, but now as opposed to 80 years. And I like that scene a lot where he chases the guy down, finds out he's a veteran who's got issues, and so he talks to him as soldier to soldier, veteran to veteran. That was really nice.
That for me was the sort of signal that what this book was gonna be, because the movies were awesome, but they really fucked up the trajectory of a lot of these characters as they had to align to what was a different thing. And so the Captain America that we really sort of got lucky with Brubaker over all those years had sort of changed to something that had to sort of be in line with the movies, which was a little different. And also he was more of a backseat player. I mean, for most of our lives, he was the main guy, and then that changed to being Tony Stark at some point, and so here,
well, he was the main guy in the movies. That was they tried to make it Tony Stark, but they realized they couldn't.
There's still enough of it, but Tony Stark is still the center point of the Marvel universe in the comics right now to some extent. I feel like he's the one who's putting the Avengers teams together always, and now he's gone off to the side. It's definitely been he's taken a step up.
Well,
equal.
Steve has been downgraded, and this was interesting about this was I read it directly after reading the Avengers. Which that whole arc seemed to be entirely about trying to convince me that Sam Wilson should be Captain America, and I was like,
"Is that on here? Are we not?"
No, it's on the after show.
The last page where he's like, "But nothing can keep down Captain America," and I was like, "This is." I mean, I get it. That's a good old superhero comics tactic. But I was like, this is the 10-year deaf shit. It's
and reading this one immediately afterwards, in which this really establishes what makes Steve. I mean, the gravitas that he brings from being in the war, from being a soldier, from being in the ice, from being this moral, center. It was laughable thinking about the Avengers issue previously. Let Sam be Sam and let Steve be Steve, and let them be their characters, and let's not try to shoehorn in one because the other one's got a terrible movie. And then, there's a whole great bit here with Reed Richards. It just very much establishes Steve into the early days of Marvel, however you set that in the timeline. I really like the part where, much like Coulson in the movies, Reed pulls out a Captain America action figure, and says, "My dad was a huge fan. I've had it since I was a kid." And then there was Chip Zdarsky is such a good writer who does the capacity to do such bad work sometimes, but this was good Chip. And where he goes, did they make one of these a Bucky? And it was really sad, the question. And he goes, "You're damn right they did." It was just such a great comic book moment for that.
There was something about how he said, listen, yesterday was everything that just happened to me. Right. No time has passed. And that was really interesting. I don't think I've heard that take on it for a while. And it's weird because we have done Captain America has two origins, really. There's origin from the World War II, and then there's origin in the modern world, whatever that was. And we've seen that first one a lot of times. I've always said, we've seen the origin of Superman and Batman so many times that it doesn't. But I was I don't feel like I've seen this origin of Steve Rogers in the modern world all that often. There was once in the movie, of course, there was the one in 1964, but I don't know how much they dealt with it. I haven't read all those.
There must have been other.
Yeah, but it's been a while, and also it kind of replaces him in time in the way that how they did with Frank Castle. He can't have been Vietnam. It doesn't really work that way anymore. And they brought him back, and I was trying to look sort of at, when this is supposed to be. It's not right now. It seems like it's before.
Sure.
I assume it's in continuity, but it's sort of resetting the timeline. But either way, it puts him in a modern context in a way that I think the movie did really well.
Yeah.
And it just sort of resets things without making them different in the ways that matter. I think, but I just hadn't seen this story very much. And it's one of the things I really enjoyed about the movies is because we got to deal with that.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want a bunch of old, like, what is this newfangled thing? You know, oh, I know what it was because they were talking about smartphones, basically. I was like, okay, so this was a little while ago. You know, it was 10, 15 years.
I mean, God, there was some story, I don't know if it was a comic or a movie or a TV show or some story that I was experiencing that dealt with time displacement, and they just skipped over all that stuff. And I was like, that's the fun part. If you're going to do time displacement, then at least do some stuff that explores it. Anyway, this also intercuts with another character who, and this is the only part that I didn't love, and it's indicative of the Marvel universe, but a kid who witnesses 9/11, which I've forgotten that 9/11 happened in the Marvel universe. That was such a mistake. I get why they did it. It was admirable, but at the time, but they should have just let it be. He witnesses 9/11 and joins the army, too young, gets bullied because he's too small, and it sort of becomes a new Captain America, I guess, while Steve is still on the ice. So this would imply that Steve is not thought out until well after 9/11. So, you know, in the 2010, maybe 2015, who knows? But so this guy is also got a Cap shield and is probably crazy. And at the end of this is that Cap is part of this new Howling Commandos unit that Thunderbolt Ross puts together that does like covert stuff for the government. So it's a very interesting kickoff to this story. I hope it doesn't mean that they're gonna relegate Steve to sort of flashback tales. You know, my hope is this book isn't all entirely taking place in the past, and that Sam is the modern Cap, and Steve we'll see Steve in flashbacks. I hope that just occurred to me while we were talking about it. I didn't even think about this last night when I read it.
Well, what I thought about was there is this kid, and I you know, by the end I was like, oh, I don't want dueling Captain Americas anymore.
Again. We just did that.
I mean, we did it, but we've done it so many times. It's just John Walker. We've done it with Bucky. We've done it with Sam.
The Secret Avengers one, the Secret
Avengers
Invasion
one, a lot, and
Secret War.
So I liked everything that we just talked about. I liked all of the stuff with actually spending time with Steve Rogers in his correct superhero suit. You know, dealing with being in the world, acting like a soldier, having a really interesting conversation with a disturbed vet, another really good conversation with Reed Richards, another one with Thunderbolt Ross. And then, you know, we meet the new Howling Commandos, and I was like, and then at this point,
Nick Fury should still be there with Dum Dum Dugan.
Yeah. And then this weird, then
they can't catch a break. They can't catch a break with Nick Fury.
And this weird outfit they put him in, which I just glossed over.
Well, it's very much like the Steve Rogers undercover outfit from whatever. I didn't hate it as a covert outfit.
No, but then
the next cover says, you know, because the mission they have to go into Latveria, and so it says, you know, Cap comes face to face with Doom for the first time. So like, if we're gonna do that stuff,
sure,
then I'm all for it.
That costume's awful.
It's not great.
It's awful, and they did the fucking eyebrow thing.
Why not just keep him in the suit from?
It looks so good
that we used before, that they used in the movie that I didn't even hate.
Just put him in the one that he's got.
Anyway, this was the best Cap book in years.
Low bar.
Oh, super low. I mean, JMS's run was a disaster, but I mean,
there was seen that coming.
There was one or two issues of that I didn't hate. I know, but then I did hate the rest of it. This was incredible. And I'm glad
Michael Straczynski is as reliable as the mail. You can set your watch to it. 1.5 issues in, you'll be like, "What the fuck am I reading?"
And that's basically what happened. 1.5 issues in. Chip Zdarsky, he of the Great White North, has a good handle on what makes Cap so special. The tone that you need for a Captain America book, and the characterization of Steve Rogers. So
I think that we undervalue Chip Zdarsky, and I think that you're right. Like, he does some things that don't.
But his great stuff is terrific,
right? But also the stuff that's bad isn't necessarily badly done. Like, what is this crap? It's more like, all right, you've made a choice I don't really like, and I'm not enjoying. But the sort of breadth of the things that he does is, and even as you were reading all those Batman issues, you didn't like what was going on. You're like, you know, there's a lot of good things in here. He's got talent and skill.
You're right. I was being overly harsh about him.
Right. You didn't like the story.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
His Avengers Twilight book, which we really loved.
Yeah,
had a great Captain America in it.
Yep.
So I'm glad he's doing this again. I hope they're not relegating Steve to the past, because this book, being on the stands at the same time as Avengers, really undercuts the entire Sam Wilson as Captain America argument. But we'll see how long that lasts. Now, quite literally, the only other comic I could have made a case for pick of the week, and I thought for what was going to have to be that until this read Captain America, was Godzilla versus Thor #1 by Jason Aaron Cooter, Jesus Bertoff, and Joe.
Wait, you just said Jason Aaron Cooter.
I did. I put it together,
which is efficient, but was slightly. So it's Jason Aaron Cooter.
Jason Aaron Cooter. They're a couple. They're a power couple. They're the new hot couple on the streets.
It's two people who are
Joe Sabino. What was cool about this was, I think this is the first time we've had anyone from the actual era doing the book, because this has been Godzilla through the eras, and obviously 60s and 70s you couldn't really have those people. But
when was the Fabian Nicieza one? Because
that was the X-Men one. I think place in the 80s. I didn't read it because there was a problem.
He could have been contemporary to
That's true. I just didn't read that one, so I didn't think about that one. But we had the terrible Bendis impersonation in the last issue, and this was actual Jason Aaron doing Thor at the time period that Thor he'd be doing Thor. Aaron Cooter was one of the artists on Thor. Probably one of the best artists we've had on these Godzilla books. Sure, it's fucking awesome.
So we got started. I opened it up and I started reading it, and the first scene I went, wait, what is this? I'd forgotten what I started reading. I went, wait, what is this? Because we're looking at the Beast, people, and I was like, it's the Punisher thing. And then it occurred, and then I flipped back to the cover and I went, Jason Aaron, and then a little page I go, wait, is this Avengers or Thor? Like I don't remember things, but like right away I was like, oh, he's just using all his pieces that he's already, which is, people love to do that, like everybody, Jed McKay does it all the time, and Jason Aaron does too. But in that way, like you're saying, he was able to work in the contemporary space, but also with the stuff that his toys basically that are still current.
And what was funny was that, so that very first page has an editor's note where they refer to the Punisher. It says, "See the Punisher, King of Killers," for trade paperback for all the details. I was like, oh, they're really firmly placing it into continuity with that editor's note. But then, the book ends with Thor dead in hell with Godzilla. So I was like, well, I guess not.
This is where it splits.
Yeah. So that's fine. It's funny.
It's a bifurcation.
But man, like Aaron Cooter doing these giant pages of Thor fighting Godzilla, and then Godzilla gets the sliver, or the beast people, or the hand. Is that they were? They were the hand.
What? It's the shard of the
god. No, the people in the beginning. They're the
they're the fist. Hand? They were the hand, and the fist of the beast. Yeah, it's the fist, I think.
They give the shard of the God Killer sword to Godzilla, and he becomes Godzilla the God Butcher. And there's a great double page spread of that reveal, and this was just incredibly fun.
Yeah,
I thought this was there wasn't a lot to it. It was basically a giant fight scene. So, there were cool ideas in it where Thor opens up the portal to Jotunheim and freezes Godzilla with the the fairy frost or whatever, and that was cool.
Air of Jotunheim,
super cold air.
And then that great shot where the Godzilla's been frozen there for weeks.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you something. This, if anything else, this was just a feast for Jesus Bertoff.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
You're just like, you know what? Color, space battles, and fire and ice, and it's just these big palettes of colors that he got to play with, like the purples with the oranges, and really fun.
Classic Thor costume, which I don't think he was wearing at the time, but doesn't matter because it's the best one. And it's just, I don't want to speculate, but like Jason Aaron's in his fuck it phase right now, right? He's writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he's writing DuckTales, he's writing whatever he feels like is the most fun. That's the vibe I get. And so it makes sense that he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do Godzilla. Just another check mark of the IPs he's just putting on his wall.
And he understands this the same way that he understood Conan.
Right.
Was that you don't need to explain it. You don't need to delve into it and find a different hidden meaning. Godzilla is a big monster, and he's real mad. And like, there's actually all sorts of questions in here. Like, is there anything behind that blank alien eye? Like,
nope.
We don't know. And so, like, I'm not answering that question. Whereas all the others, like, oh, Godzilla is the spirit of the earth and the protect. Whatever. maybe he's just something that shows up and wrecks stuff. Like,
right.
I'm cool with that. And I like that he's okay with that ambiguity. He's like, we just have a fight. There's a big bad monster. I think it even says like Thor knows what a dragon looks like. And we're like, there you go. That's it. Like his ability to just sort of live in this heavy genre stuff and not do too much with it other than the dramatic sort of overwrought dialogue, which is the right thing to do in this instance.
He has the feel, the natural feel for this genre. We talked about it back in his Thor days when he writes Conan. Like, he just has the feel for making these fantasy stories feel weighty but super fun. Yeah, it's a very fine line to run, because it could be too weighty and not fun at all, or it could be too fun and not serious enough. You have to be right in the middle, and he does a really good job with that.
Yeah, and like he has a respect for sort of these, I mean,
Pulpies.
they're pulpy pop culture, Robert E. Howard, if kid was to read it now, like, this is a lot, but it's light pop entertainment. It's just within a certain voice.
Right.
Conan I'm talking about, but it applies to these other sort of titans of pop fiction, like Godzilla.
So it looks like it's culminating in Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe later in this month with Jerry Duggan and Javier Garron, which I'll read.
Sure.
And then
I've read all of these.
It's been a nice little fun adventure. Sexy
which
fun
is, and it just lets you, it's like, just go play with this thing. And which is so much better than over, I think, in DC. Like, it was like a series of like Godzilla versus the JSA, and there'd be a whole plot, and people are, I don't know, whatever was, there was one this week, it was like Kong or something, but
that one, that was like the Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League. Yeah, it's not good.
But that's what I mean. Like, the miniseries, like, I don't want the, like, just show me a couple of scenes with this. I don't need an explanation. I don't need you to figure out the plot.
Right.
It's not worth it.
What it should be, and what it is, and what it has been, is when when I was a kid and I had all my action figures in a giant box, and I would dump them out, and I would have He-Man fight Darkseid, fight Godzilla, fight, the Lone Ranger.
Right.
Like, that's the feeling you should have here. Is just, you've got these two toys, you got Thor and you got Godzilla, just smash them together for.
And then you put them away. And the next day you do another thing, and there's no continuity.
Right. Well, I had detailed continuity.
Sure. I was going to say, you're
charts. I had a table on the wall. Like, well, this guy broke his fist last week, so he's out of commission.
I tell you something. You're the continuity guy, but I specifically have a memory of being a kid and playing G.I. Joe or whatever it was, and telling other kids, it was like, no one can die because we can't use them again. Like, I remember doing that and saying that. I was serious.
I want to make clear, I did not do any of that stuff. I had no continuity in my play, but that is cool.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that says about me, but I was definitely like, there was definitely.
I do remember towards the end of my days of playing with action figures, where I think I crossed over with my my tabletop role playing game, where I was using dice in the fights, where I had like 20-sided dice.
Wow.
And, this guy's attacking this guy, roll the dice. And I was like, I was like getting slightly too old to be playing action figures, and then I started playing tabletop, and suddenly I was rolling dice, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with toys. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a second. We'll have more comics to talk about. All right, we're back with X-Men 319, number 19, and I want to make clear something before we move on to the listeners and the viewers at home. We had to fill out a rundown. We couldn't stop at 2 books. In the past, we might have stopped at 2 books because we try to highlight books that we really enjoy in the show. Josh, talk about X-Men.
I put this here.
I know.
Did I?
You put it on, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I literally don't.
Because I did not like this issue one bit, so I wouldn't have.
Well, here's the thing. I've been reading X-Men for a while now. I would say that in our tenure at iFanboy, this is the longest single amount of time which I have read X-Men.
Do you mean the title? Because you've read X-Force longer.
No, but like in this sort of main, like there was a bit where I was reading, I don't remember if Jason Aaron's X-Men.
Oh, right.
Adam, I don't remember, or X-Men and Wolverine, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that went, but I've been in this since the beginning of the Fall of Krakoa, 19 issues into this X-Men book. And this was the one, like, there's been hints, but this was the one of like, oh, I don't want this.
No, I said the same reaction. This this is bad.
Well, here's the thing: is that I think that we still have interesting stuff on the table with all those guys up in Alaska, and I don't need anything additive because it's a lot. Like, there's a plot there that I feel we've abandoned. Like, what about Hank's relationship with the nice police lady? Or like stuff comes and they fight. There's a big monster like
in the show.
Oh no! And so and then what comes? Like, I feel like the thing that I really liked is going away, but it wasn't even like at the end of an arc. They just have moved on to adding this other stuff, these other groups. These like, are you O-N-E? No, we're Z-E-R-O. And I was like, no.
So I want to make clear, I don't think this was a badly made comic.
Nope.
I think it was well written. I think the art, Netho Diaz is fine as a fill-in. I don't love it, but it's fine.
Wasn't great.
It's fine. Like, it does the job. I don't love it in any capacity, but I don't care about the characters that you see on the cover who are in the entire issue. And I don't necessarily get mad when you have a book and suddenly you turn the camera for one issue to focus on the characters. That can be fine. But this wasn't it. And it came on the heels of that last arc, which we did not care for, with the other new X-Men. And once they said
at least the X-Men were in it.
That's true. But it just means that there's been like 4 issues in a row where I just don't, or 5 in a row where I'm just like, I'm not into this. And then once they said the word Araco, or whatever the fuck that other thing was. Once they said that, I went, oh no, because that was the part of Krakoa I didn't care for at all.
Is that Mars? That's what she is? Maybe. I was like, is this a Dune character? I don't know.
Iraqi.
Yeah.
I think, no, Araco.
Boy, when you say Iraqi out loud, that's...
Iraqi are the people of Araco. I just didn't care about this at all. I wasn't happy to have read it.
And I didn't like, I know, who's the robot? Warlock. Like, I've seen him before. He was in like X Factor.
Well, these are New Mutants people.
New Mutants, that's it. Yeah. Well, what's that robot's name?
I didn't read New Mutants. That was the one X-Men book I didn't even read as a kid. I read everything else, but not
like I at least recognize that character. I didn't know who the other two were at all. And just like I said, you just like, I've left all the things, literally everything that I have been enjoying about the book, and I really enjoyed like those first 10. And I was like, all right, there's rebuilding their society. We're sort of figuring out who Scott Summers is. And then it's over. It's not in this at all.
Well, look, in the cover of the next issue, you've got Scott in jail. So maybe we're back into it.
I guess, but like with business, this is what always happens with X-Men.
I get it.
Is I think creators get excited by how much stuff there's there, and they do. I'm projecting a little, but they try to do a Chris Claremont thing and make it big and swirling. And I'm like, just focus on the people that I want to be focused on, because I know enough to care about them, and I don't know enough to care about these characters. But I will also say, all the characters in here just seem like low rent versions of other characters who already exist. And so this woman who looks like the lady from the Nebula.
Yep.
But then acts just like Barda or just like Clea. Is it Clea or Clea?
Clea.
Right, Clea. I get it. You're from a warlike tribe of people, and you'll protect the man. Like, it's all been done.
I think there's always a point where with X-Men where you get, like you said, it gets too deep into the stuff, and they can't just go forward and tell new stories. They've got to keep going back, and this is even going back to Krakoa. It's like, we moved on. Like, I know.
Did you like his shirt? Krakoa was full of her.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Let's move on to JSA number 9 from Jeff Lemire, Diego Orlogi, or Olortegui. Olortegui.
You get a letter about that.
Olortegui. Great cover.
Diego Orte.
You can't even do it.
That's bad. Ortega.
I don't know if it's Stockholm syndrome, but the book might be getting better.
9.
That's my thing. The last issue was really good. It was a flashback to World War II with the Justice Society. That was great. I've liked Diego's work. He's got Scott Collins flair to his pages and his design, and I'm not entirely sure what is going on here, but almost every scene in this book I enjoyed. I don't know. Maybe that's some Stockholm syndrome. Maybe I'm trying to justify it, but I think it's slowly starting to come together. The first arc was a disaster. It was a bad way to start this series, but Jeff Lemire is a really good writer, and I think he may be starting to put it together. I don't know. That's just my feeling.
I mean, there are shows that have bad first seasons and then turn out excellent.
This is very Scott Collinsy art, and I think that really does work for the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still on the fence about bearded Alan Scott. I don't know. It just looks wrong. You know, it's a great. I mean, he's got great head of hair, great beard, but just doesn't. You know,
I have a real soft spot for blonde bearded superhero characters.
Well, there you go. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
You could.
I mean, the first time as a kid I saw Thor with a beard, I was like, "This is just right."
I mean, it was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Bearded Thor also at the end. So I guess Valhalla or Ragnarok bearded Thor with Godzilla. That was a fantastic design and costume. Do that.
It was a great book.
Yep.
I at least I had that as Captain America had been a bust. Anyway, I think if you were on the fence and hadn't tried it, or you dropped out, this might be an issue to come back and see what you think. But I don't know. I can't give it a full throated. I just can't. I don't know. I might be trapped.
I'm not.
We're gonna take another.
I'm not on the fence.
We're gonna take another quick break. And look, I'm sorry. This is gonna be the tone until we get to the emails. So I'm sorry.
I didn't make these comics.
All right, we're back with Absolute Green Lantern number 4, which I really thought you had dropped.
As did I. And yet, when making my list, I left it off the list.
Yeah.
But then it was the first thing I read. I was like, all right, I gotta see what's going on here. I can't.
That means there's something there.
I hate it.
Oh,
just right here. I just there's a lot of books right now that I just don't know what they're doing, and I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can look at something and be like, I think this is bad, but until I get the full measure of it, I don't know exactly why it's bad. So I'm some part of me
you want to understand.
I do want to understand, but I also want to see if there's any way to pull out. So right now, the main question here is that it's kind of an interesting reinterpretation of how Green Lantern works and Evans or whatever. All that's fine. This is supposed to be the quote unquote darker universe. And by the way, I'm so sick of the word dark as a way to describe stories. It doesn't mean anything. But the question here has to do with Hal Jordan, who sort of has the green good part in him, but he's also got some black thing in him that is making him do bad things, and he's not in control of himself. Not unlike Barda in the Birds of Prey.
Correct.
Very similar. And I kind of want to know, are you going to make Hal Jordan the bad guy, or is the idea going to be that he defeats it? Now, it doesn't make sense that he defeat it because there's too many other characters.
Right. Oh, they're also in it?
Yeah. One of them just got disintegrated or something, but now Hector Hammond has showed up. He has an ascot and a drink, which is nice. Yeah, I don't know. I want to know. I don't even like it, but I want to know. And I won't do this with like TV shows or whatever. I'm out.
Right.
And I've never finished an Al Ewing arc that I've enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what he's doing.
Okay.
That's the most I can tell you.
Fair enough.
I think it's bad.
So Daredevil 685, number 23 is interesting because so for those watching on YouTube, you can see the cover. If you're following along at home, you can check out the cover yourself. That cover has to do with the last arc. Those are the bad guys from the previous arc who are not in this issue. So when I saw this book, I thought, wait, I thought we were done with those mushroom dudes. And I opened the book up, and none of the people he's fighting are the mushroom dudes. He's fighting this new Franco-Belgian crime syndicate that's moved into Hell's Kitchen. And they've hired Taskmaster, and that was the story. I'm
listening to that. What you're saying?
That was the story, and that was not on the cover. I mean,
Franco-Belgian crime syndicate who hires Taskmaster. Yeah. I'm feeling turgid.
The Franco-Belgian crime syndicate runs stuff like a business. What are they called? They're called something stupid. Nouvelle Direction. Nouvelle Direction.
Oh,
yeah. I will say this book featured two artists, Carlos Nito and Jose Luis, And I really like the Jose Luis stuff. Carlos Nito stuff I was not into. He only drew the first couple of pages, but really, really rough. But then the art changed, and I forgot that it was two artists. And I was like, oh wow, this got really good. And then I realized it was different artists. But
is the cover? I can't tell from the.
That's Romita.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
He's still wearing the dumb '90s costume.
Uh-huh.
And they shoehorned him into this new relationship a couple issues ago, and then they just abruptly broke up. And this one was just fine with me. I didn't care about her, but it was actually really good Taskmaster, classic looking Taskmaster. Although the weird thing was, they kind of act like they didn't know each other. Like he introduced himself, and then
do we know that they've met?
Daredevil's like Taskmaster, and he goes, "Oh, you remember me? I'm flattered." I was like, "These guys, I mean, they've been around. They fought. I mean,
right,
you know." And then what was cool was Taskmaster through the fight with Daredevil starts to figure out that Daredevil might be blind because of the way he moves. It was really interesting. Like there were good things in the issue,
sure.
But I just bizarre that the covers from the last issue. It'd be like if there was a whole arc of Batman fought the Joker, and then the next arc he's fighting Penguin, but the cover features punching the Joker again.
It is weird though. It's like
somehow that got through.
Like, these people don't even care. Look,
it's barely getting by here.
Well, we paid for it. I know, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So anyway, this was fine. I mean, Saladin has been doing this for a long time. I think he's been more missed than hit, but maybe it's time for a new
he's done great stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
He's done stuff I've really enjoyed, and then other stuff has lost me. But that's I feel like a lot of that times that comes down to preference.
Sure.
Listen now, patreon.com/iFanboy is one way to support the show. We are a listener supported and I guess viewer. So and they are viewers.
They are.
To make that clear.
Now they are.
Listener and viewer supported endeavor that we have here. You can directly support the show, become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. You can vote on the Patron Pick. You can get a Patron Power live on the show at the $5 or higher level and join the monthly Patron Hangout, which is live or accessible, I guess on tape delay. You would have access to it after the fact, and not everyone does. So that we don't release those to everybody.
That's true.
$10 or higher, you'll get an ad-free version of this audio podcast on Saturday, day before the show comes out. Plus, you will get the iFanboy after show where we talk about all 2 books that are left over after this show.
No, there are books. There's 10 books. There's 10 books.
Normally, it's
not good books, but there's 10 of them.
Yeah, but that's what the people wanted. The after show exists that comes out on Sunday, just like the normal program.
It comes out in audio and video form, by the way. If anyone's curious,
yes.
We have a patron feed. Where they get the early show, but they also get the after show in audio forms.
Nice.
So, in addition to the video that we put out on Patreon.
I had no idea. Yeah. There's a discount if you sign up for 1 full year, and you can also send or receive gift memberships. Go to patreon.com/iFanboy/ gift for more info. None of this is mandatory. If you would like to, you can. The show will remain free for the taking as much as you'd like it. iFanboy at Threadless for now. iFanboy.threadless.com, our merch store. We have 22 designs you can put on t-shirts, sweatshirts.
We have a new one coming in like
tees,
a week.
New one
2 weeks.
New one inbound, 2 designs. That's enough. iFanboy.com/support has a PayPal link for just a very simple way to help support the show. iFanboy.com/Amazon, which is a general shopping and affiliate link. And now when I hear Amazon, I just hear my dog freaking out that one of those trucks is out there. He really, really hates he barks at Amazon trucks that don't even pull into our driveway. He knows what they sound like. I'm gonna have to stop. Bookshop.org is a local bookstore aggregate for book ordering, and we will put those on the website where we are able. When there is a book that needs to be linked to that is available at bookshop.org, there will be a bookshop.org link. And we think that is a valuable resource. Moving along.
On with the show again. So the very last second, I added G.I. Joe Real American Hero 318 to the rundown just because we needed something else to talk about. This is Larry Hama, Paul Pelletier. I think this is a good issue. It was fun. I mean, nothing extraordinary happened in it. It was very much a move the pieces from A to B. But I liked the scene in the beginning with Storm Shadow and Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that her code name or her real name or both?
I think there's Dawn, there's Sean. Of course, Storm Shadow's Tom.
That's true.
You know what? I have a little because I still have the cartoon voices in my
Tommy.
head.
Yeah.
I get it, but just
I
go with the
I understand.
I have the cartoon voice in my head where he was Asian, or at least a white guy doing an Asian voice, which was
you continue to navigate, and I'll take point.
Exactly. But in here, he's just talking like a dude.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
And it kind of weird. And like, it's not wrong. Like,
No.
Tommy was American. I believe he was Asian
American, yeah,
or
he's
mixed
Japanese
Asian.
American. Yeah.
But, you know, like he fought for the American army. Like, there's no reason he wouldn't have an accent or whatever. But I hear it in my head. So when he's talking here, just like straight up American, I was like, that feels wrong. You did good, Don. I was like, you did good, Don. Like, it's not right. Next time, and he said, next time follow through with the combination. And I was like, this isn't a video game. But then again, Larry Hama said it, so maybe they really did call him video or combinations. I do
like though that one thing they never did, and this is the same guy, right? This is still Larry Hama, so they never had Destro talk like he was Scottish, and at least in the old days. And here, like on page 22, he says, "Nah, my dear Baroness." I was like, "You never did that back in the old days."
I
don't think he ever had to say "nah."
I think by having him. Maybe, but they were calling him Laird, and I never understood what that meant.
They were calling him Laird Destro, but they never had him talk with an accent.
Yeah,
which is relatively new, I think.
I see now. I don't know because I've read many of them.
Yeah,
and now I don't quite remember, but I do remember like he's got the kilted guardsmen who work at his castle. So, you know, like you're pretty. Like I can kind of understand the outfit with the collar now, given that background and like how he's the arms dealer and it works.
It was also the early 80s and people wore the open shirts.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
There were a lot of great things in this. Cobra Commander escaping was fantastic, and then immediately Destro being like, "Help, it worked." You know, like, it was basically schemes upon schemes.
The Death Star, you know, we let them escape and put a tracker on them, but still, it didn't negate the fact that Cobra Commander had a plan. And he theoretically could have escaped if they hadn't let him. Right. At least he could have gotten out of his cell for sure.
I wondered why they served them on metal trays. I just feel like that was a bad move. Like your security has to be better than this.
Not as bad as honestly the chrome dome that Mindbender has on his head now, but you know. This was fun. Then there was the whole undercover operation in Springfield. I mean, there's a lot happening here.
Can we talk about Cobra veterans singing old Cobra war songs at the Springfield Library? That's fantastic. How long has Cobra been around? It's like these guys fought in the Great One. Well, I was in the original 82 wars. You gotta understand, they were in a basement.
All the people in that library have brown hair, so they could have all fought in the 80s, the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
that G.I. Joe makes even less timeline sense than superhero comics, and it's fine.
It's a strength.
It's fine. They all fought in Vietnam somehow.
Cobra Commander's heel has matches in it, which is fine. That's James Bond. But if you look, there's a flathead screw, which I feel like people could find. Also, why are we using flathead screws? I feel like it's the easiest thing to find another implement to turn it with.
I was going to say, would there be something more useful than matches? But I guess he's got a whole bomb making kit in his clothing. So the matches.
What's great is that the matches are laid out in such a way that they're spaced very evenly. So like you could use that space for other things, but he wants the matches to be easily countable and able to be grabbed.
5 matches, no more than 5.
Yep. Like there's only matches in there.
Well, he's got everything else in his hat.
Are you telling me that they can't have some sort of self-immolating explosive at this point? He has to have an old-timey. Yep.
So that was the books we wanted to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron of the show gets to vote to add a book to the rundown. This week, the winner by like overwhelming 3 times margin was Captain America 772, #1, which we already talked about. So all that's left to do would be to rate Captain America 772 or #1 Captain America ratings out of 5. I might be over indexing on it because it was the only really good book this week, and it's the best Captain book of the year. So I'm going to say 4.5.
3.8.
3.8?
3.8.
Whoa!
Some really great things, but then there's some really worrying things.
8.
I know that you're hungry for Steve. Yeah.
That's crazy.
The fact that there could be another Captain America who's going to be unhinged in some way. I
I
don't need another Bucky. I don't need another Robin.
I understand that for sure. However, in continuity, there was the cap of the 50s between the war and when he came out there. So that was a thing. They had another Captain America. They had to try to, keep that brand alive, and then he went
too many caps. No more caps.
Would you have read this if it hadn't been the Patron Pick? Yes,
absolutely.
And are you sticking?
I was so excited by that logo treatment. That's all I needed. The colors. I was yes. All of those things.
And we're sticking with it. Yes.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But I have reticence. I
understand.
I've been burned before.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks everyone who votes for the Patron Pick. But if you give it the $5
J. Michael
Straczynski
level, on this book,
you get a Patron power live on the show, like Plato's Cave. What was Plato's Republic?
Plato's allegory of the cave is that what you see in the world are only representations of what's actually happening. So if you're stuck in the cave and you can't see anything and all you see in the outside are the shapes of shadows, then you're not actually seeing the thing that's happening, and you have to base your decisions and judgments on those. I got a low grade in Introduction to Philosophy, but I think that's right.
There was some movie where Plato's Republic was a game, but I can't think of what it is at the moment. Anyway, I
read Plato's Republic in that class.
Plato's Cave has double power washing hands. So he shoots water at the speed of power washing out of both hands. He can clean your deck and your car and your steps. I watched two guys the other day power wash the front of a house. It was awesome.
We hired a guy to do that once.
I just power washed the front steps because they had to fix a brick that came loose and they left mortar dust everywhere and dirt. So I just power washed the steps. It's awesome.
It's very satisfying. Yeah. I was gonna say I was about to make a request. And it was like, can one of the hands be also an air compressor?
Ooh, because so one's water, one's air.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't want that moisture, but if the air compressor will also.
That's a fair addendum. One hand water power wash, one hand air compressor.
I don't think we've ever done that.
And also he can, because he's got control, he can add soap to the power washing if he wants to.
Oh, sure. He's got a soap reservoir.
Yeah, absolutely. So
how many times I've almost bought a power washer, which I don't really need and don't have anywhere to put.
Yeah. I don't have like a great one. I bought one at like Home Depot. I was like, and I use it, every couple of months.
What kind of PSI you pushing?
I just honestly, I've had it for over a year. Just now found out there's a button that increases the intensity. I was like, I think that's too much. I don't want to strip the paint off of things.
Sure.
So there you go, Plato's Cave. You can be loaned out or use it as a offensive weapon if you need to blast somebody in the face with water. So there you go. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron, Plato's Cave. If you want to be a patron and give the $5 higher level, get your power in the show, go to patreon.com/iFanboy. Look at us. Look at us being ahead of the time.
We'll blow it.
So
we no reason to go long.
All three emails I've got this week are all behind the scenes questions. They're all themed. So the first question, Zak H from Milwaukee, Wisconsin says, I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks since I listened to episode 982. In that episode, Conor mentions how many books he had to read and how it was hard to take in and enjoy what was happening in the books due to the volume that he needed to read. This led me to wonder, with so many good books out now, have you ever thought about dropping books solely to improve the enjoyability of the reading experience? Not dropping them due to quality, but due to the overall enjoyment of your reading experience. Now, he's speaking of the week that had 31 books, which, to be fair, was an outlier. That's not a normal week. Normal weeks,
20 books is pretty normal, though.
Normal weeks is between 15 and 20. That's a normal week. But 30 was unusual. That's why we did the bell.
I wouldn't drop a book that I liked.
No, also we have to do the show.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't drop a book I liked because even so, like a book I like is still a precious thing. There's enough books that I don't like, and then books I just don't care about, which isn't the same as not liking something. I always try to be like, there's bad and there's I don't care.
I do want to clarify. I didn't say I didn't enjoy the books. I just said it was hard to.
Yeah,
I did really enjoy the books. There was a lot of great books that week. It was hard to remember everything because there were so many of them. What happened in one? Was it that book or was it the other book? I mean, we've said this a million times. We're not normal readers. We have to read the books and do the show. And so, if I was a normal reader, I would space the books out over a longer period of time rather than 48 hours.
I would read less of them.
Well, there you go.
I would
right. And we're also reviewing. And so I feel like I don't feel an obligation, but I feel like I should try to read as many of the good things that I know about as possible to possibly talk about on the show. Just like anybody, a movie reviewer is going to see way more movies than a normal person would see, and will maybe enjoy them less because they have to, but it doesn't mean they should see them less because part of their job is to review them.
I always phrase it that like the more you know what you don't like about things, the more you can appreciate the things you do like, or just like you really start to appreciate the things you like because you understand why.
Right.
And so like there's value to that either way. That said, like I will drop a book probably quicker than Connor will, just because it's not giving me anything.
And I just want to point out that was so weird compared to this week where I had 15 books and I was finished super early and couldn't find hardly anything good to talk about. And that's just, you never know what's going to happen. It could be a short week with hardly anything good. It could be.
I will tell you that it doesn't affect the show as much as it affects the rest of my time. Like I don't have a ton of time. So if I have to read comics like a lot on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, like I don't get to read out. Like I was cruising through a bunch of Usagi Yojimbo books and the Lone Wolf and Cub, and I just like they've all been off to the side. I feel like there's been so many books and other things I've got to do that like I don't get to other reading.
Yeah, I mean,
and real books.
My non-comics reading is Thursday night through usually Monday night, and then the rest of the nights are comics reading. But like the week I had 30 books, I started reading Monday, which I don't normally do. This week it was just like 15 books. I read half on Tuesday, I read half on Wednesday, and that was done.
If I was a civilian, though, I would do that. I mean, it's just like, it's like TV. Like I can't watch all the TV, so
yeah. But it doesn't affect my enjoyment, and it's just hard to remember sometimes what happened in what book when there's characters.
Also, we're middle aged, so and you've seen like we've seen these stories so many times that like I'm like, wait, did this just happen? Like, no, that was in a Punisher book 15 years ago, right?
But I
can tell you who the inker was.
There's probably people who think we talk about the same book too many times anyway. So if we were reading fewer books, you'd be hearing about the same 10 books over and over again. So we're trying to give your variety, and I'm trying to read a variety. I'd like to know what's out there, what's happening, and who the new people are, and what's
I love finding new people who I connect with. I mean, like when the Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Patrick Horvath, I just was like, oh my God, there's a new voice that is speaking to me that is fantastic. A few years ago there was an influx of a bunch of new writers at Marvel who I think that we really connected with, and then they let Jed McKay write every single book, and now I'm not sure anymore. And what happened to Philip Kennedy Johnson? And yeah.
All right, you read the next one.
Geoff C says, I've been thinking about this question since the multiple picks of Fantastic Four and Daredevil Cold Day in Hell. Has an entire limited series or every issue of a single story arc in an ongoing ever been pick of the week? And bonus, is there one where you would have picked all of them if all the picks had been yours, limited to during iFanboys?
I don't know how I would have answered the bonus question, but the first question is yes. I mean, I don't have a comprehensive list here because
that's weird.
It would be two off the top of my head. I thought of two for sure. But I don't. I mean, I think if you go, Airboy was the first one. I think we picked every issue of a miniseries. That was 2015. That was a James Robinson. Who was the artist? We loved him. Greg Short.
Yeah,
is it Greg Short. Is that the name of the artist? You can probably look it up. Airboy.
I have it over there. Greg.
Anyway, that was one. That was the first time we picked every issue of a series, and Greg Hinkle.
Greg Hinkle. There you go.
And you, me, and Ron all picked it at some point. It was a 4 issue miniseries.
That was, by the way, the rotation made it less likely that would ever happen.
Yeah. Although I think one of the things I've looked back on is I feel like I've got a memory of you and I picking every issue of a Gotham Central arc in the pre-podcast website days.
I mean, that's very likely.
It feels right, but I don't know that I don't have evidence to point that out. The only other one I can think of is the opening arc of the Batman and Robin series where Morrison and Quietly got every issue of that got picked.
The 3 issues?
Yeah.
I
think it was all three of us. Me, you, Ron, all picked it. But it doesn't happen a lot because again, it's like it's like winning at slot machine. You've got to have the week, the person, and
how'd we do on Avengers Twilight?
I don't think it was every issue. Let me see here. I've got the archive open here. Avengers Twilight, issue 1, issue 3, issue 5.
Okay,
so we skipped 2 and 4.
So we just did prime numbers.
Yeah, and it was you, me, you.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends on the person and the thing, and who's got it when it comes out, and
like
all kinds of things.
It's hard to. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of comic books,
right?
But what am I thinking of? The Punisher with Ennis and Goran, not Goran. What's his
name? Goran Parloff?
Yeah. Was it like the Punisher born? Like there was maybe it was Nick Fury. I think it was Punisher. There was one.
No, it wasn't Fury. It was Get Fury.
Nah, there was some. I don't know.
There's not been very many Punisher picks of the week.
No, maybe it wasn't even Punisher, but I maybe it was one of those.
Punisher the Platoon with Ennis and Parloff. That was a pick of the week. 1 issue,
Mm-hmm.
2 issues, 2 out of 6 issues are pick of the week.
Okay.
Punisher Soviet.
See, but so that's the thing is like I know that I can pick out things that happened that I know that we were big on every time they came out, but didn't necessarily mean they were pick of the week. So, but
right, and I'm sure you could go back and find arcs, maybe especially in the old days before the website. I mean, before the podcast, where you could have had like Powers, maybe, or Queen of Country, or
so much of Tom Taylor's Deceased. Could have been like we were bullish on pretty much every episode of that issue.
Deceased 2, Deceased 5, Deceased and Killables 2, and Killables 3. Did Planet 1? No, I mean not every issue, but
every issue. But I guarantee you, though, if we were to, like we probably liked everyone and talked about everyone in the show up until the point where we just didn't have anything else to say about it. Because sometimes you can really enjoy something we don't put in the show because it's a new thing. It's why we keep making Fantastic Four pick of the week. If it wasn't pick of the week, we may not talk about it all the time because it's just the same thing.
Oh, that issue was so good last week.
Oh my God. I was angry.
It was really, really good. It was one of the best single issues in a while. If that doesn't win an Eisner for best single issue, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, the first official one that we remember was Airboy that happened 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Batman and Robin, the first arc was picked. So it happens, but it's hard because like Josh said, it's got to be the right week, the person. Back when Ron was in there, he was a wild card. We all don't like the same books. Uh-huh. So it's difficult. That's kind of why it's kind of fun. Yeah. The next one's going to be quick, so we'll do that one. Dan G from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania says, when iFanboy is at its peak with daily output of content,
suggesting I'm no longer at my peak.
Listen, we all know we're on a slow downward spiral. Publishing articles, reviews, videos, etc. Did you ever receive unsolicited submissions from fans or folks trying to break into the comics journalism game? I know a lot of the writers started out as listeners, but I wondered if there was a point where you cut it off. Was there a standard way of saying thanks but no thanks? So yes, the answer is yes. All of our original writers, they were not all listeners. Paul was Mike, Paul Montgomery, Mike Romo, Jim Muskowski were. Sonia Harris was not. She's someone we met. Gordon the intern was not. He was our friend from college. Those are the original 5 writers. And then everyone that came on after, for the most part, was a listener. Timmy Wood, Ryan Haupt, Ali Cluccio. Molly McIsaac was not a listener. David Brothers was not a listener. But for the most part, people would say, "Hey, I'd love to write for you guys," and we'd always say, "Okay, so like give us a submission." And we hired a couple people like that, and a couple people we said, "No, this is not working for various reasons." The voice isn't right, or we already have someone that sounds like that, or there's all kinds of reasons why it wouldn't work. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the writing talent. It's just that, your voice sounds very much like 2 people we already have got. And,
or just like not that's something that's,
or not the iFanboy.
The aesthetic. There was an aesthetic, which is why you don't see a lot of guests hosting the show.
Right.
From the podcast, but it also applied to the, we it's hard to define, but we knew what we wanted and what fit.
Right.
And there was just things that didn't. There's a lot of, if you read, Newsarama or CBR back then, there was a style to it which wasn't ours necessarily, and like straight up sort of news wasn't really what we did for the most part.
Right.
I don't know that I have the same taste now as I did then, by the way, just for the record, but we definitely we had an aesthetic that was hard to pin down, but we kind of knew it when we saw it.
Yeah, and it just we definitely had them throughout the entire time. People were trying again, sometimes they hard, sometimes they didn't, and but there was there were tons, and what it came to show was there's a lot of people out there that are incredibly talented and maybe don't have an outlet for it.
Yeah,
and they didn't back then. I mean, everyone kind of has an outlet now, but in 2000 and let's say 7, 8, when we really started going with the website, there wasn't as many opportunities for someone as talented as Paul or Jim, to have an outlet, to have a place for people to read their stuff. And those two guys. I mean, everyone we brought in was really talented, but those two guys in particular were really, really talented writers, and
too good for us.
Glad to have them on our platform. They should all be famous. Jim was born 30 years too late. He would have been an incredible newspaper columnist. But so yeah, that was happened all the time. And anytime we found someone really, really good from the iFan base, we were always like, oh shit, yeah, let's get this person in there quick.
But it's also rare to be that good.
And it was rare, yeah.
I mean,
and sometimes
no one who wants to write doesn't think they can write. So the other way is, a lot of people think they can write, and not as much.
But also, maybe someone who wasn't as accomplished still had an interesting voice or interesting point of view.
Yeah,
and that was also valuable. So it was always very complicated.
Was very valuable.
Very complicated situation, but it was like pornography. You knew it when you saw it, and that's how we hired people.
Which was the only thing that our content has to do with pornography. That's the only thing we have in common.
Well, no, we did the top 10 most naked superheroes.
We did, and of course, that was very successful.
One of our most successful posts ever.
I'm still baffled by the fact that written interviews just were the worst performing thing. And I was like, why does anyone do this?
People just don't want to read them.
It's weird.
They'd rather listen to you talk. So there you go. Thanks for writing. We want to hear from you. Contact@ifanboy.com is how you can write in. Like Zach, Geoff, and Dan. Appreciate it. You can also write in for our Media Explode show. Put Media Explode in the subject line. Not this month because we're doing Rad, but next month we're going to do a mini summer mailbag. So if you want to get in on our Media Explode mini summer mailbag, please write into that. And now July is busy. It's always a busy month, but we have 4 extra shows this month. So this coming Thursday, July 10th, we have our Media Explode. Just mentioned Old Man and Old Movies. We're reviewing Rad with special guest Gordon the Intern. We're all going to talk about the 1986 BMX bike film, which I'm enjoying the bafflement of the audience by that.
Over under on me forgetting to watch it before recording.
We're going to text you every day. But it just, I just love how everyone's baffled as to why we're doing it. There's no rhyme or reason for why any of this happens. It's whatever.
I'm also baffled by it.
Whatever. It wasn't my idea. Let's put it that way. No one on the show. This was not our idea. We're being held hostage by this. The week after, Thursday, July 17th, will be our Superman podcast review. The week after that, Thursday, July 24th, will be Talksplode, most likely with Josh.
It's scheduled. It's all like we're in the books. So
as soon as
happens now.
As soon as it's recorded, we'll tell you who it is, but it's someone who's currently writing comics. That is true.
As opposed to somebody who used to and is like, I don't know, they won't call me.
I would love for you to do some retired comic
I know, creators. I've tried.
Get John Byrne on the horn. And then finally, Thursday, July 21st, will be our Fantastic Four First Steps review. So 4 shows this month, I guess. 4 shows, 4 extra shows, 8 shows this month for your enjoyment. Thank you very much.
You ever think about the person making a Fantastic Four movie who's like, maybe this time I'll be the one to crack it?
Well, if Marvel Studios can't do it, no one can.
Has there been a film series or like a property that they just keep trying to make and it's failed spectacularly every time? Can you think of? Yeah, but Tron like made an impact in the world. But I'm saying like the first one is beloved. There's never been.
I don't know if it's super popular, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but like it lived in. But like, there's not been a good or a successful Fantastic Four movie. And there
I would. The first one was successful.
The Roger Corman one?
No, not that one. The first big budget Chris Evans was
okay.
That was successful. Not like huge, but it was successful.
Okay. Not enough to make another one.
They made a second one, The Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Oh, you're right. We'll see how that stuck with me.
Well, it doesn't mean they didn't do it. They did it.
I don't even know if I saw that.
I like the second one better, but the Silver Surfer was awesome. You're up.
You can find our entire library of all the shows that we have done that are available at iFanboy.com and wherever you get your podcasts. You can never miss a show if you make sure to follow us at or you can find out what the pick of the week is before it comes up by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, iFanboy.com on Blue Sky. Follow us individually. Conor and I are on Zak Kilpatrick and Josh Flanagan on Instagram. And then Jeff Reed, who is one of those writers from the staff, is doing regular video deep dives into forgotten comic book minutia and lore every Tuesday and Friday across our social channels and on YouTube. So look out for that. See, he found something to do. That was actually a really big thing too about people coming in. It was like, can I write for? Like, what do you want to do?
Right.
And we'd say, pitch us ideas. Tell us what you want to do. And very often there were not answers. They
just wanted to do it. And Jeff had an idea. He wanted to do DC histories. And we were like, cool. Please consider writing a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Pocket Cast, you need to be subscribed and have it downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. And you can subscribe to our youtube.com/iFanboy page where you can watch the video version of this show as well as all of our other shows other than Special Edition, other than Talksplode. And you can also watch Jeff Reed's comic book deep dives, and you can find our old archive of video shows that we did from 2007, 2012. It was heady days, boys and girls. And a lot of people we just talked about were on those shows. And finally, join us in the iFanboy After Show exclusively on Patreon, where we will share our thoughts on the 10 other books we read this week. It might be a short one. They didn't make the rundown. All the books that didn't make the rundown are on the After Show. That's on patreon.com/iFanboy for everyone to $10 a month tier and up. And thank you for listening. I am Conor. I'm back.
What was the last thing you said?
I'm back.
Oh, baby. Then you're gone again.
I'm not for a couple weeks.
All right. You're still, you know what? Just like Dad, you're always going to leave me. I'm Josh.
I'm on for 3 more weeks. Bye-bye. That was dark.
It was right there, though. What was I supposed to do?